everyone has been led into this conventional wisdom belief, essentially, that all data must be collected, all data must be stored, all data must be managed, and all data must be controlled. Frankly, for most companies, they're collecting too much data, and they're collecting data far faster than they can actually use it because they have so many controls in place.
Welcome to Founder Fridays. So, this is where we sit down with builders who've been in the trenches to talk shop, so product, design, and the real lessons no one puts on a slide deck. My name is Mudit Goyal. I'm a data scientist at Notion, and today I'm joined by Bo Hu. He's the co-founder of CEO of Bevel, which is a last mile data logistics platform that's making data more accessible, actionable, and powerful for every team. Before that, Bo ran marketing teams at Credit Karma, Affirm, and Bestow. So, really excited to have you here, Bo. Of
Really excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
course. I want to dig into your founder story. So, obviously, you've had a career that's touched some of the biggest names in tech, but you decided to step into the founder role. So, wanted to really start there and dig in a little bit more. When did you first feel the itch to really start something of your own? And how did your previous background in marketing and growth really shape what you're building today?
To be honest, I've never really thought of myself as a founder. It's not being an entrepreneur wasn't something that's been even in the back of my mind really through my career. I think at the end of the day, I really spent my career driving changes within organizations, and been doing that over a decade at this point. And what I've realized is in driving changes through organizations, there's this like fundamental, persistent kind of barrier that I'm always trying to overcome. And it's essentially this idea of there's a huge chasm between business value delivery versus technical execution. And just through that decade, it's really honed in on like, hey, I've been at all these organizations. These are fast growing organizations, and yet none of them have really solved this gap, especially in the data space. So part of actually starting Bevel and sort of really going on the founder journey is not so much like, oh, I want to be a founder, I want to be an entrepreneur. It's just that I've been through all this pain, and it pains me that others are still going through this pain through many organizations. So it's really something that has allowed me to sort of hone how we solve problems in market, but really at the end of the day, it gives me a lot of satisfaction knowing that hey, I'm building a product and I'm building a business that at the end of the day really will sort of change the way that people do work.
For those of us hearing about Bevel for the first time, what's the problem that you're actually solving, and how is your approach different from the traditional kind of dashboard or your standard like BI tool?
So our goal at the end of the day is this very simply. We're trying to close the data to business value gap. So what I mean by that is for most companies, there's a ton of data. But the pain point and the duality here is for a lot of folks on the business side, and this includes growth teams, product teams, revenue teams, any sort of teams. The biggest issue that we hear time and time again, and I've felt myself, is we have all this data, but for me to use it, for me to get anything out of it, takes me weeks or months, or depending on the size of the organization, some of our current clients right now, years to even get one thing, to even get one dashboard or one insight or one model live. And that's really what we mean by the data to business value gap. There's a ton of money being spent on data, but the business isn't getting the true value out of it. And the way that we approach solving it really is we take a 3-pillar system to how we design our product, how we design our processes, how we even design our business. And it's basically this. The first and most important preeminent point that we try to do is we remove macro level steps. Most companies in this space, they'll say, well, let's just make building a dashboard a little bit easier. Let's make insights a little bit easier, or let's make pulling SQL a little bit easier. Our approach is this. Those are macro steps. What would happen if I build a product that just removes those steps wholesale? So if I have a question about my business and I say, Hey, I want to know how much t-shirts I sold in the last 60 days. What if I remove all those steps and now you have an entire report end to end that shows you the full funnel instantly? And that's really what we're trying to do, not just with dashboards, but essentially the entire data lifecycle when it comes to collecting data, cleaning data, merging data, getting insights out of data, even creating data science models. We're trying to take that holistic approach. So that's pillar number one. Pillar number two is for the unavoidable steps, we have this concept internally that we call time to value or TTV. For a given process, what is the average amount of time that it takes? Can we design a product? Can we design a process that cuts that TTV by 75% or more? And then the third thing that we're really doing that I think is very different than a lot of data platforms or data products out there is we are fundamentally shifting our ICP from technical teams to business end users. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create product value for the growth team, for the product team. I'm trying to give them, in layman's terms, sophisticated data and sophisticated dashboarding and sophisticated analytics tools that they can understand and instantly be able to use and add business value immediately.
Yeah, I mean, you're essentially tackling the data to business value gap with the three pillars. With that foundation in mind, I'd love to rewind to like the first 30 to 60 days of Bevel. What were some of the things that you focused on first to really bring that vision to life, and what parts of that early build were the most energizing for you?
I don't think there was anything singularly in terms of what we built that was energizing or in terms of where we were going that was energizing. That was all energizing. I think what was actually more exhilarating and frankly more terrifying at the same time is more of a realization. And the realization is this: you and your team, you're on your own. And I've never been a founder before, so I've never really felt this truly in its essence until the first 30 to 60 days of Bevel. You're on your own, which means you have total freedom and total responsibility converging, basically crashing into each other all at once. And what that total freedom gives you is essentially, hey, I have this thing in my head. My team has these things in their head. We can make it real. And we have the full power to do so. You don't have an HR team. You don't have a legal team to start, right? You don't have all these guardrails that are silently put in place before you join an organization. And what I realized through part of it, and what kind of made me less terrified is this: there are safeguards, there are guardrails. They're just different. They're in a different form. It's the other founders that are around you. It's the fact that some advisors can give you more information. It's the fact that you actually have a lot of people who are in your corner, but that's more of what the safeguard is when you're on your own. And it's less about the structurized safeguards that you would feel if you're not starting your own business.
Yeah, I mean, that's the mix of total freedom and like total responsibility, like definitely sounds like both exhilarating and obviously a little daunting for sure, especially in those first few months. You mentioned finding these new kinds of guardrails through other founders and other folks in your network.
Mhm.
Fast forward to today. I mean, given you have that foundation in place, what are some things that still keep you up at night?
The thing that really gets me going is a conviction that I know that what we're building is really solving things in the market. Um, what I am worried about because of today's environment is that are we not building fast enough? And I know every founder since the beginning of time doing their own thing is always like, am I not building fast enough? What about my competitors? All of this, right? But there's like an exponential multiplier effect to it right now because of just how AI is playing out in the space. And just the way that I view AI right now, and there's a saying about bankruptcy, and people have always said bankruptcy happens slowly and then all at once. And that's what I feel like has happened with AI. AI has been developing for the last 2 decades. And AI was developing very, very, very slowly. And now, in the past few years, it feels like we're at this all at once moment where things are just compounding. There's exponential build times. Things are super chaotic. And that's the point in which we're building. And it gives me a lot of heartburn and anxiety just knowing that, hey, what prediction I have in terms of how far I'm ahead of the market or how far I'm behind the market, I am most likely wrong, and that timing is being condensed right now. And that's what really keeps me up at night at the end of the day.
You've called Bevel a last mile data logistics platform. For someone outside the data world, what does it actually mean? And why is it such a pressing problem right now?
Some people might call me crazy for saying, or for essentially building another data platform product out there. Um, when there's so many competing products, there's already massive companies in the space on essentially multiple layers of the data stack. But the issue right now is the way that the industry and the way that data management teams and the way that analytics teams handle data is that it is super centralized. And not only is it super centralized, everyone has been led into this conventional wisdom belief, essentially, that all data must be collected, all data must be stored, all data must be managed, and all data must be controlled. Frankly, for most companies, they're collecting too much data and they're collecting data far faster than they can actually use it because they have so many controls in place. So, what we mean by last mile data logistics is this. Um, you can kind of think of it's kind of like how Amazon developed its last mile logistics in terms of warehousing. Warehouses are everywhere, but there was no holistic business tackling that final delivery from the warehouse to actually value added end user same day value. And that's what we mean by last mile data logistics. And how do we sort of approach that at the end of the day? Well, there's actually three principles that we really go after. So number one, when it comes to collecting data or centralizing data, we retain only high value data in our warehouses, and our warehouses are single tenant for customers. What that actually means is we don't collect more data than we need to for your business. And because we collect less data, but relevant data, there's less risk associated and less controls that need to be put in place. Number two, we have done on our back end through some technologies we've actually patented as well. We automate actually the collecting, the cleaning, the merging of data at the point of collection, so that we're actually only pulling in clean data and centralized data into our warehouses on behalf of our clients. And third, when we approach our product build, it's not so much what are just the technical capabilities and technical gaps that we can close, but how do we design a product? How do we design a user and focused product that tries to close the business technical gap so that non-technical users can actually act directly without necessarily needing years or decades of analytics and data expertise.
Let's switch gears. Let's maybe pop the hood on how Bevel actually runs day to day and the tools, workflows, and tech that really helps to keep you moving fast. So let's dive into it. I'd love to hear more about one tool, workflow, or habit that's 10x your team's velocity this year. And how did you come across this tool? How'd you discover it?
One of the things that we've really focused on in terms of tooling is this idea of what we like to call interconnectivity with utilizing AI as sort of workflow lubricant. So, personal anecdote, um, I do my best thinking when I'm in a car driving. And some of I personally believe, best thoughts, unfiltered, are in my commute. I have these thoughts, I'm getting really excited about it. And then I get home and I forget about 80% of it. And maybe I'll jot a note down or two if I'm not making dinner, but sometimes I won't even remember it the next day. Well, how has that changed for me? Well, now when I'm commuting to work, I can actually do a voice transcription of myself, just talking my thoughts out loud or just making some notes without having to touch anything. Then I feed that into an AI tool as a first pass to just summarize it for me. That's one of the first things I do when I make a voice note when I get home or when I get to work, to do the summarization. And from there, even within that same day, either at night or even in the morning up until noon, I'm actually able to then organize those thoughts into a go-to-market plan, product documents, wireframes, or frankly, if I get that far, I can actually even vibe code my way to a clickable demo if I need to for the products we want to build. And that entire thought process, which would have probably taken weeks, if not months, to do previously, with the AI lubricant that I'm adding into that workflow, I've essentially condensed it down to a day max, maybe less than a day.
Yeah, I mean, turning commute time thoughts into concrete plans, whether they're concrete GTM plans, PRDs, or even if you're vibe coding a tool out, that's great that you're really taking charge of your commute and making that time work for you. How does AI show up both in your product and in your internal workflows? And in your view, what is hype versus truly useful right now?
There are a lot of folks that assume that AI can do anything. AI can do your work for you. AI can do your thinking for you. You can basically let AI run on autopilot. And one of the core things that I truly believe still right now is that AI should facilitate, not replace core thinking. AI is trained on conventional information. It's trained on generic information, which means that whatever thought it comes up with is not an exceptional thought. It's a conventional thought. It's something that everybody else has already thought. That's what it's trained on. And if you're allowing that machine to think for you and make decisions for you, then the best product and the best business that you can make is something non-exceptional and conventional. You're not building a better product. You're building something that's just kind of there with everything else. So that's one part of it. The way that our product is constructed, there is an AI layer that sits above and that can orchestrate everything. And the end user will utilize that AI to essentially interface with our product. But our core technology is the data infrastructure that we've built, is the data processes and data controls that we've built. And around it, we've built an MCP layer, which our AI then interacts with. But that flexibility allows us to do sort of two things. Number one, companies don't necessarily need to use our AI to access our MCP. So we have a little bit of flexibility there. And number two, we're still building building a core infrastructure business that is not easily replaceable as an LLM wrapper.
How does your team weave using Notion into your day-to-day work? Whether it's product specs, customer onboarding, or various different AI features?
I would say that Notion is singularly one of the best third-party tool decisions that we've made, essentially, since our inception. Notion is number one, AI integrated, which is core to our workflow. Number two, Notion is highly flexible in terms of its integrations. And number three, it provides all the core building blocks for designing whatever process we need. So I'll go a little bit more in depth with that. We don't have a CRM tool that we use right now. We're still a startup. We can't shell out hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars for a CRM tool, right? Well, guess what? We can hack together a pretty good CRM tool with Notion alone. Our inbound leads flow directly feeds into Notion. It auto updates things. It has call recording in terms of when we want to record calls, when we get the permission to do so with our clients. And not only that, it keeps track of things in a very organized and concise manner. And that's not just the power of that. So that's just on the CRM tracking and just being able to have all the information there. We didn't realize that this was actually a term, but one of the first things that we did, because Notion has the AI, is we essentially utilized Notion as our enterprise search function. So because we're tracking all the CRM stuff, because we have all of our internal notes in there, it's connected to our Slack, it's connected to our email, and what's great about Notion is I'm not just like connecting stuff randomly. There's the data controls in there, there's the privacy controls in there, and it's all automatic. So that at the beginning of every day, or at the very least at the beginning of every week, I, as the CEO of my business, I can literally go and type into the AI, hey, what's happened over the last week? Give me a summary of what's happened over the last week. Let me know how sales is going. Let me know how product development is going. How is production going? What features are delayed? Things along those lines. That I do get updates on, but I get so many updates on so many things, it's really easy to forget. That AI is able to tell me that information, and from it, I'm able to deduce, okay, this is what I need to lean in on with my team. And that saves me particularly valuable time, but I know that folks on my team as well use it a lot to save their own time in terms of figuring out what they need to prioritize for their own roles.
So we've now covered your journey and the tools that really keep you moving. So we'd love to land the plane with some rapid fire takeaways for any founders tuning in. Um, so we'll do three pretty quick questions. So we'll start with the first one. If you watched a startup tomorrow, what would you do differently in 2025?
When we started, AI was a thing, and we thought we were good at AI, but really we weren't. um, if I were starting in this year right now, uh, I would fully weave AI into my business fabric. I would pounce on it rather than sort of tiptoe into it like we did the first few months. And it's because it's developing so quickly that if you're tiptoeing into it, A, you're barely scratching the surface. B, you're probably falling behind. The only thing I would caution there is the best way to treat AI as you're plunging in, similar to what I said before, is this. You got to treat AI like it's the smartest first year hire you've ever had. So, what does that actually mean? AI is a savant. It knows everything that you can ask it, at least for the general human knowledge base. But it will really test how good of a people manager you are, how good you are at actually delegating tasks, how clear and concise you are at asking for output. Those are the skills that actually really drive you, how well you're utilizing AI. It's not, can I give it a generic prompt? It's how precise, how accurate and precise of a prompt can you give it in terms of context, and how accurate and precise of an output can you spell out for it, both quantitative and qualitative. So that if I was launching in 2025, that would be the first thing that I really try a little bit more. And I think if we had done it the first few months, we probably could have even condensed our timeline down, a few more weeks or a few more months than we are today.
What is one hard-won lesson that's helped you build better?
You need to ceaselessly seek clarity. And what I mean by that is clarity itself is a multi-layered onion that you need to just ceaselessly peel. It's about seeking clarity through every single level of your product and every single level of your business. And that's really going to drive your progress forward. Clarity is about finding out enough and knowing when to stop. And I know when I've reached clarity based on really more of a feeling than a true logical stopping point. For me, I know I've reached clarity on something when I get that aha moment. And when you hit a moment of clarity, it will be so painfully obvious of an answer to what you didn't know before that when you look back on it, you're like, how am I so dumb to not have thought of this in the first place? For your teams, once you've reached that level of clarity, it gives you instantaneous alignment across teams because everybody else will be able to see how obvious it is as well.
So if you were talking to a day one founder right now, especially in this AI era, what's the single best piece of advice that you'd give them?
So the one thing I would say is like question conventional wisdom because founders, you are truly exceptional. You're truly great at what you do. You are exceptional in that you are building something on your own. You are not just going to work for a company. You're trying to make a dream come alive. You're exceptional in many ways. When you hear conventional wisdom, you should pause and really go back to first principles on does that conventional wisdom apply to me? And um, and then an additional point I would make on top of that from a conventional wisdom perspective is you should be actually building something impossible. If you're not building something impossible, if you're building something, and really at the end of the day, in today's AI era especially, if what you're building wasn't impossible 4 or 5 years ago, you're not thinking big enough.
This was a lot of fun. Thanks so much for joining us, Bo. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun as well. Thanks for having
Sweet.
me.